Can you tell which one was sewn with 1 needle and which one with 4? From the outside, it's almost impossible. Now let's have a look inside. This notebook was sewn with just 1 needle. You can see that the thread runs between every sewing hole inside each signature. And this one is sewn with 4 needles. Here each pair of holes is sewn independently, so there are no connecting threads between the pairs, and there is a gap here. From the outside they look almost identical, but as you can see the construction inside is different. Today I'll show you exactly how I sew this 4 needle Coptic binding. Hi, I'm Joanna. Welcome back to my missredfox paper art channel. It's all about bookbinding and paper crafts for beginners here. So if you've already tried the simple 1 needle and then the 2 needle Coptic binding, this 4 needle version is a wonderful next step. You may think it's much more complicated, but don't let the 4 needles intimidate you. You are really just repeating the same sewing movement across 2 separate pairs of holes. So let's get started. For today's notebook I'm using 2 prepared covers, 5 signatures with 4 sheets each. This is handmade paper, 2 pieces of waxed linen thread and 4 needles. The covers and signatures are already prepared, and if you'd like to see how I make them, I'll link some Coptic binding tutorials in the description below. I have already punched the holes in the covers and signatures to save a bit of time, but before we start sewing, let's take a quick look at the whole template. This binding uses 4 sewing holes arranged as 2 pairs. In my template, the spacing between all 4 holes is the same. That's simply my personal preference. Another common option is to leave a larger gap between the 2 pairs of holes while keeping the spacing within each pair the same. I like the evenly spaced layout because it creates a nice and balanced sewing pattern. The upper and the lower holes are positioned a little closer to the edges of the notebook, so the spaces above the upper hole and below the lower hole are slightly smaller than the spaces between the sewing holes. For this binding we need 2 equal lengths of thread, 1 for each pair of needles. I calculate the lengths once using the same formula as in my 2 needle tutorial, then cut 2 pieces to that measurement. So the formula is exactly the same as in my 2 needle tutorial. Some of you had a good laugh when I used a bit of math to calculate the thread lengths in my 2 needle Coptic binding tutorial, but this is simply how I learned it, and it's the method I've always used. Other bookbinders prefer more practical rules of thumb, and those work perfectly well too. So remember that you are calculating the lengths for each pair of needles, not for all 4 needles together. Once both threads are cut and waxed, you thread 1 needle onto each end of one thread, like here, and make sure that the thread is centered so both needles have the same amount of thread. Let's start sewing now. We'll begin exactly as in my 2 needle Coptic tutorial, so from the inside to the outside of the first signature. And I like to start with the first signature because like this the knots will be at the last signature, and I prefer it like this. So from the inside to the outside, 1 pair of needles, and then the other pair of needles. It looks like this. And try to pull a pair of needle at once so the thread is centered between 2 holes and you have more or less the same amount of thread for each needle. And then it looks like this. I like to turn this around, I find this easier. Now I will attach the front cover. For this, take 1 needle and insert it from the outside to the inside through the hole in the cover, and repeat with all the other needles. You don't have to pull the thread tight first. Now you can do this. And again, turn this around. It's easier to work like this. Pull the thread. Now you are ready to attach the second signature, and pay attention so it's in the right and correct direction, like this. Before I continue with the second signature, I'd like to show you one little trick that helps me stay organized. So from this point on, I will always keep the 2 needles for the right pair of holes on the right side of my workspace and the 2 needles for the left pair on the left. Within each pair of holes, the needles naturally swap position while sewing, but they will never cross into the other pair. So before every new signature, I simply try to spread the threads out on the table. It takes a few extra seconds, but it makes it much easier to pick up the correct needle. Sometimes I also use a sponge like this to keep the needles separated, like this. Although I personally find it a little slower because I have to put the needles back into the sponge after every stitch. So we'll continue with the second signature. I will insert the needle from the outside to the inside to the second signature and go out through the other hole. Then leave this needle be and take the other needle and repeat the same into the other direction. So from here, from the outside to the inside to here, and go out, and take care not to put your needles through existing thread. Don't have to pull that tight first. And repeat on this side, from the outside to the inside and out again. And with the other needle from the outside to the inside and out again. Now you can start pulling tight. So what I do is to take these parts of the thread and pull apart, because the idea is to pull into the direction of sewing. So with this needle I came from here and went to there, to the right, so I will pull to the right, and with this needle I came from the right to the left, so I will pull to the left, and here the same. See that you then don't have loose threads inside the signature. Now comes the most difficult part of this binding. Turn this around and make a final stitch so the cover is attached properly. So what you have to do is to pass with the needle underneath these both stitches, the one that attaches the cover and the one between the signatures. So first like this, don't pull to the end, leave a loop here, and then underneath the stitch between the signatures. Now you can take your loop and make a so-called kettle stitch, so go with your needle through this loop and bind a knot. Then repeat here with the needle first below this stitch, which attaches the cover. Take your time. Then below a stitch between the signatures. It's a bit more difficult without a curved needle, but I really don't like curved needles, so like this. Through the loop. And make a kettle stitch. And the next one, underneath this stitch, and then underneath the stitch between the two signatures, then through the loop, and last but not least, this one. One, and two between the signatures and out. And through the loop. And now your cover and the first two signatures are attached, and you can turn this around like this, arrange your threads. Now we are ready for the third signature. It's the same procedure. From the outside to the inside and out again. The other needle from the outside to the inside and to the outside again. As you can see, the two right needles always stay on the right side of the notebook and the two left needles stay on the left. And within each pair of holes, the needles exchange positions naturally, but they never cross the center. Now you can tighten the thread. And with this third signature, you will simply repeat exactly the same rhythm for every remaining signature, and we'll always sew the right pair of holes first and the left pair of holes after that. So at least this is what I do. So what we have to do now is to make the kettle stitch. So take your needle, count two signatures, 1, 2, and go below the second signature and out again. Make a loop and go with your needle through that loop, and you have a knot, so a kettle stitch, and this is attached now. Repeat here, but the problem here is that again my needle is not curved, so what I have to do, I will go after two signatures inside to the inside, and then have to open my book, find a needle, and go with my needle around this stitch here and out again. And I have my loop and can pull my thread to it and make my kettle stitch. Here again, 1 and 2 signatures. Open the book, oops, find the needle, go around this stitch here, and go with the needle through the loop. The last one is again easier like the first one because we have an edge here. So 1, 2 signatures, go inside, outside, find the loop, and go through it, and you are done with the third signature. So once both pair of holes are sewn within one signature, we'll move to the next signature. So I will start here. And repeat the same sequence over and over again. Move to the left, take the other needle, move to the right, and with this pair of needles tighten the thread. Count 2 signatures, 1, 2, go in after the second one and out again. So around this piece of stitching, go to the loop, through the loop, and make the knot. One, 2 signatures, go in, open the book, go around the stitch and out again, go through the loop, and you have your kettle stitch. Number 3. After the second signature, open the book, go out again, through the loop, and the last one, 1, 2 signatures, go out again, kettle stitch, and done. Now we have 1 signature left and the back cover. By the way, when working with 4 long threads, they may occasionally twist around each other. If that happens, stop for a moment and untangle them before continuing. It's much easier than trying to fix a tight knot later. Now I will attach the last signature and will speed up a little bit. I will not make the kettle stitch here because we have to do this only after we attach the back cover. So take the back cover and it's the same as for the front cover. Go with the needle from the outside to the inside, like this. Second needle, third, and the last one. And now you can pull tight. And what we have to do now is to go with each needle underneath this stitch that attaches the cover first. So like this, without making a knot, just pull tight. And then make the kettle stitch, and you still count 2 signatures and not the cover. So 1, 2, like this. Have your loop and go with your needle through the loop and you have your kettle stitch. and repeat for all the other holes. So try to keep this tight enough so your cover is not too loose. So once around this one, and then count 2 signatures, 1, 2, open the book, go around that stitch, out again, make your loop, go through the loop. 3, the same. Two signatures. Kettle stitch. Done. And the last one is easier again because we are at the edge. Pull tight. 2 signatures. Out again. Through the loop. And finished. You now have the threads and the needles outside of the book, and you need them inside of the book. So to finish, what you have to do is to find the holes in the last signature and go with the needle through that little hole here, which is not always easy. So take your time. Not between the signatures, but into the last signature. Now the moment of truth, we'll open the book and find all needles here, which is good. And to finish the notebook, you will have to tie a half hitch knot at each of the 4 sewing stations. So we have 1 thread and 1 needle, and we have to tie around these 2 pieces of thread. So what I do, I go from here upwards, have my loop, and then go with my needle downwards through the loop and try to make the knot over that hole, and then into the other direction. Downwards, and then upwards through the loop. Finished. Second needle. Upwards and downwards through the loop, then downwards and upwards again. And before you do this, you have to see that you don't have any loose thread here, so that this is pulled properly to the end. Take scissors and trim the thread close to the knots. I like to leave about a half a centimeter to 1 centimeter here, depending on the size of the notebook. And you're done. Let's talk about some common mistakes. The mistake that I make most often is simply picking up the wrong needle. So keeping the right pair of needles on the right and the left pair on the left helps prevent that. Long threads, they can twist around each other occasionally or form small knots. If that happens, stop immediately and untangle them before pulling the thread tighter. If you accidentally tighten a wrong kettle stitch, try to loosen it very carefully with the tip of your needle, and this is what to do also if you have knots in your thread. Because once the knot is fully tightened, correcting the mistake becomes extremely difficult and may mean taking the binding apart completely and sewing it again with new thread. So it's always worth taking a quick look before tightening every stitch completely. For larger books, especially around A5 size, but also for the A6 ones, this is my preferred Coptic binding. For even larger books like A4, even in landscape format, I'd perhaps use 6 needles and 6 holes, but the principle is the same. And I also use thicker linen thread. The spine becomes a little bit bulkier, but I like the extra stability. Because every sewing station is secured with its own kettle stitch, I find this binding firmer than the basic one needle version. So here's the finished notebook. Just like every Coptic binding, it opens completely flat, making it perfect for writing or sketching. And from the outside, it looks very similar to the one needle Coptic binding. But if we open the notebooks, still the same, and have a look inside, you can clearly see that there is a difference. So for the 4 needle binding, each pair of holes works independently, giving the binding this characteristic appearance with the gap between the sewing stations. As for the 1 needle Coptic binding, you have 1 thread here and no gap. I really like this look, and for larger notebooks is my favorite Coptic sewing method. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that it encourages you to give a 4 needle Coptic binding a try yourself. And once you've found the rhythm, it's much less complicated than you may think. So whether you choose the 1, the 2, the 4 or even more needle Coptic binding, they're all beautiful ways to make a Coptic notebook. This one just happens to be my favorite for larger books. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like this tutorial, and stay tuned for more bookbinding videos. Happy crafting!